Have you ever thought about why some people glide through life effortlessly while others, equally talented, equally intelligent, equally hardworking, crash and burn? Why do mediocre minds rise to the top of organizations while brilliant mavericks get fired? Why do average performers get promoted while exceptional workers get passed over? This isn't about merit. This isn't about fairness. This is about a game that's been played for thousands of years, a game that determines who gains power and who loses everything. And the terrifying truth is that you're playing this game right now, whether you know it or not. Every single day, in every interaction, in every meeting, in every conversation, you're either winning or losing at the game of court politics. This video will change how you see every relationship, every workplace, every social hierarchy you'll ever encounter. By the end of this hour, you will understand the hidden rules that govern human power structures, and you'll never look at your own life the same way again. Let me tell you a story about two men in the court of King Louis XIV of France. The first man was a genius. Nicolas Fouquet. He was the finance minister of France, the man who controlled the kingdom's wealth. He was brilliant with numbers, visionary in his economic policies, and instrumental in restoring France's finances after years of war. He built himself a magnificent chateau, Vaux-le-Vicomte, the most beautiful palace anyone had ever seen. He threw a party for the king, the most lavish celebration in French history. 20,000 guests. Fountains flowing with wine. Fireworks that lit up the sky. A feast prepared by the greatest chefs in Europe. Entertainment by the finest artists in the world. He wanted to impress the king. He wanted to show the king his power, his wealth, his magnificence. 3 weeks later, he was arrested. All his property was seized. He was tried for embezzlement and treason. He spent the rest of his life, 20 years, locked in a prison cell so small he could barely stand. He died in that cell, forgotten, broken, destroyed. His crime? He had outshined the king. He had made the king feel inferior. He had forgotten the fundamental rule of court politics: never make your master feel insecure. The second man was Jean-Baptiste Colbert. He was Fouquet's rival for the position of finance minister. He was less brilliant than Fouquet. Less visionary. Less charismatic. But he understood something Fouquet didn't understand. He understood the game. When Colbert met with the king, he always appeared slightly incompetent. He asked the king for advice. He made the king feel like the smartest person in the room. When Colbert achieved success, he attributed it to the king's wisdom. When things went wrong, he took the blame himself. He never built palaces that rivaled the king's palaces. He never threw parties that made the king's parties look modest. He made himself indispensable while appearing subordinate. He played the perfect courtier. Colbert became the most powerful man in France after the king. He controlled the economy for decades. He shaped French policy. He lived in wealth and comfort. He died peacefully, surrounded by honors and respect. Same kingdom. Same king. Two different approaches. One man treated power as a display. The other treated it as a dance. One man forgot he was playing a game. The other man mastered the game completely. This is Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. And it's the most important skill you'll never learn in school. Because here's the twist, here's the truth that sounds completely wrong but is actually the foundation of all human hierarchies: competence is not enough. Merit is not enough. Being right is not enough. You can be the most talented person in the room, the hardest worker, the clearest thinker, and still get crushed by someone less capable who understands the game of court politics. Every organization, every company, every social group, every family is a court. And courts don't run on fairness. They run on the unspoken rules of power dynamics. They run on perception, on psychology, on the ability to navigate hierarchies without triggering the defensive mechanisms of those above you. You think we've moved past this. You think modern society is different. You think meritocracy is real, that talent wins, that hard work gets rewarded. And this belief is destroying you. Because the game hasn't changed in 5,000 years. The surface looks different. We don't have kings and courtiers anymore. We have CEOs and employees. We have managers and team members. We have influencers and followers. But underneath the modern language, the dynamics are identical. Every hierarchy has people at the top who control resources and make decisions. Every hierarchy has people below trying to gain favor, trying to advance, trying to survive. And the people who succeed are not the most talented. They're the ones who understand how to play the game. Let me take you back 10,000 years. You're living in a small tribe. Maybe 50 people. There's a chief, a leader who controls access to food, to mates, to safety. You want to survive. You want to thrive. You want status and resources and security. How do you get these things? By being useful to the chief. By making the chief feel secure in their power. By never threatening their position. By reading their moods and adapting your behavior accordingly. By forming alliances with other tribe members without creating factions that could challenge the chief. By being valuable enough to keep around but not threatening enough to eliminate. This wasn't taught. This wasn't written down. This was instinct, developed over hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. The people who understood these dynamics passed on their genes. The people who didn't, who challenged the chief directly, who made the chief feel insecure, who failed to read social cues, got exiled from the tribe or killed. Natural selection favored social intelligence, the ability to navigate hierarchies, the instinct to play the courtier. And that's still your brain. Right now. 10,000 years later, sitting in your modern office or scrolling through your modern smartphone, your brain is running the same social calculations your ancestors ran around the campfire. Who has power? How do I gain their favor? Who are my allies? Who are my rivals? How do I advance without triggering defensive aggression from those above me? These calculations happen unconsciously. They're baked into your neurology. But most people don't understand what their brain is doing. They don't consciously recognize that they're playing a game of court politics every single day. So they make mistakes. Fatal mistakes. They think honesty is always the best policy, so they tell their boss uncomfortable truths and wonder why they get fired. They think merit should speak for itself, so they focus on their work and wonder why less talented colleagues get promoted. They think authenticity means expressing every feeling, so they show frustration or ambition or superiority and wonder why people turn against them. They're playing checkers in a chess game. They're using the wrong rulebook. And they lose. Now let me tell you about a modern example. There was a company called Enron. You might remember it. One of the largest corporations in America in the late 1990s. Energy trading, natural gas, electricity. At its peak, Enron employed 20,000 people and claimed revenues of over $100 billion. And inside this company, there was a culture that explicitly rejected court politics. The CEO, Jeffrey Skilling, created what he called a meritocracy. He instituted a ranking system where employees were evaluated purely on performance. The top 20% got huge bonuses. The bottom 20% got fired. Every 6 months. No mercy. Just pure meritocracy. Skilling thought he was creating a perfect system. The best would rise. The worst would fall. Politics wouldn't matter. Only results would matter. And at first, it seemed to work. Enron grew explosively. The stock price soared. Everyone wanted to work there. It was the most admired company in America. But underneath the surface, something toxic was growing. Because when you try to eliminate court politics, you don't actually eliminate them. You just drive them underground. Enron's employees learned quickly that survival wasn't about real performance. It was about perceived performance. It was about managing up, about making your bosses think you were performing whether you actually were or not. It was about taking credit for successes and deflecting blame for failures. It was about forming alliances and destroying rivals. It was about playing the perfect courtier while pretending you weren't playing at all. The result? Enron became a den of backstabbing, manipulation, and fraud on a scale that shocked the world. Employees fabricated results. They hid losses. They created fake profits. They destroyed evidence. They lied to regulators and investors and each other. Because the only thing that mattered was the perception of success in the eyes of those who controlled your fate. The company that tried to eliminate court politics became the ultimate example of court politics gone insane. Enron collapsed in 2001. The fraud was exposed. Billions of dollars vanished. Thousands of employees lost their jobs and their retirement savings. Executives went to prison. And the lesson was clear: you cannot eliminate court dynamics by pretending they don't exist. You can only navigate them consciously or be destroyed by them unconsciously. This is what most people don't understand. They think court politics is something optional, something that happens in corrupt organizations or dysfunctional families but not in healthy systems. They think if they just focus on doing good work, the politics will take care of themselves. And this is pure delusion. Court politics isn't a bug in human organizations. It's a feature. It's the operating system of every human hierarchy that has ever existed. You're born into court dynamics in your family. You enter court dynamics in school. You work within court dynamics in every job you'll ever have. You navigate court dynamics in your friendships, your romantic relationships, your communities. There is no escape. There is only mastery or victimhood. So what does it mean to play the perfect courtier? Let's break it down. The first rule, the most important rule, the rule that Fouquet forgot and Colbert understood: never outshine the master. This seems obvious when we say it directly. But watch how people violate this rule every single day. They solve a problem their boss couldn't solve and make sure everyone knows about it. They come up with an idea that's better than their manager's idea and push it aggressively in meetings. They demonstrate expertise that makes their superior look ignorant. They achieve success and take full credit, leaving their boss feeling irrelevant. And they wonder why they get sabotaged. They wonder why their boss suddenly becomes hostile. They wonder why they get passed over for promotion or pushed out of the organization. It's because they made their superior feel insecure. They trigger the defensive mechanisms that exist in every human being who holds power. And those defensive mechanisms are ruthless. Your boss might not consciously realize they feel threatened. They might genuinely believe they're making objective decisions. But unconsciously, they'll find reasons to diminish you, to block you, to eliminate you. Because you made them feel small. And no one forgives that. The perfect courtier understands this instinctively. When they achieve success, they attribute it to their superior's guidance. When they have a brilliant idea, they present it in a way that makes their superior feel like they thought of it first. When they solve a problem, they give credit upward. They make their boss look good. They make their boss feel smart. They make their boss feel secure. And in return, they gain something infinitely valuable: the unconditional support of someone with power. This feels dishonest to people raised on values of authenticity and meritocracy. It feels like you're diminishing yourself. It feels like you're not getting the credit you deserve. But here's what you're missing: power is not about credit. Power is about outcomes. The courtier who makes their boss look good gets promoted when their boss gets promoted. The courtier who protects their boss's ego gets opportunities that talented rivals never see. The courtier who masters this dynamic rises through hierarchies while more talented competitors stagnate. Look at every successful person in history who rose through institutional hierarchies. Not the entrepreneurs who built their own companies, but the people who climbed ladders in existing power structures. They all understood this rule. Lyndon Johnson, who became President of the United States, spent years in the Senate making more senior senators feel important. He would ask for their advice, defer to their wisdom, give them credit for his ideas. He was brilliant, but he never made them feel less brilliant. And one by one, they became his allies. They supported his rise. They gave him power. Because he made them feel powerful. Contrast that with countless brilliant staffers, talented managers, exceptional employees who get stuck at lower levels because they can't resist showing off their intelligence. They need to be recognized. They need credit. They need to be seen as the smartest person in the room. And that need destroys them. Because the moment you make your superior feel inferior, you've created an enemy with the power to crush you. The second rule: be subtle and indirect. Never push your agenda openly. Never make demands. Never create confrontation. The perfect courtier achieves their objectives through suggestion, through leading their superior to conclusions that serve the courtier's interests while making the superior feel like they reached those conclusions independently. This requires patience. This requires intelligence. This requires understanding psychology at a deep level. Let me give you an example. Imagine you want your company to pursue a new strategy. You think the current approach is failing and you have a better idea. The amateur approach is to present your idea directly. To show data proving your idea is better. To argue your case and try to convince your superiors through logic and evidence. This almost never works. Because even if your idea is objectively better, even if your data is irrefutable, you're putting your superiors in a position where accepting your idea means admitting their current approach is wrong. You're making them feel incompetent. And incompetent people don't reward the person who made them feel that way. The courtier's approach is different. You start by asking questions. Innocent questions that seem to be seeking wisdom rather than offering criticism. You say things like, "I've been thinking about our current strategy, and I'm curious about something. What would happen if we tried this alternative approach? I'm probably missing something, but I'd love to understand your thinking on this." You're framing your idea as a question, not a challenge. You're positioning yourself as the student, not the teacher. You're giving your superior the opportunity to consider your idea without feeling attacked. And here's what happens. If you've done this skillfully, your superior will think about your question. They'll start to see the merit in your alternative approach. And if you've given them enough space, enough time, enough psychological safety, they'll eventually present your idea as their own. They'll say, "You know what, I've been thinking, and maybe we should try this new approach." And when they do this, you don't correct them. You don't say, "Actually, that was my idea." You say, "That's brilliant. I think that could really work." You support their ownership of the idea. You make them feel smart for thinking of it. This seems like you're being cheated. It seems like you're giving away credit. But here's what you're actually doing. You're achieving your objective while maintaining the superior's ego. The strategy you wanted gets implemented. You get the outcome you desired. And your superior feels good about themselves, which means they feel good about you. You become someone they value, someone they trust, someone they promote. That's worth infinitely more than credit for a single idea. The third rule: be a source of pleasure. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of court dynamics. People think professional relationships are about competence, about delivering results, about being useful. And yes, those things matter. But they matter far less than most people think. What really matters is how you make powerful people feel. Do they enjoy your presence? Do they feel better about themselves after interacting with you? Do they associate you with positive emotions? This is why mediocre employees who are fun to be around often outperform brilliant employees who are unpleasant. This is why charming incompetents rise while grumpy experts stagnate. It's not fair. It's not meritocratic. But it's reality. Human beings are emotional creatures. We make decisions based on feelings and then justify them with logic. The person who makes their boss feel good will be favored over the person who makes their boss feel anxious or inferior or uncomfortable, regardless of actual competence. The perfect courtier understands this. They're attuned to mood. They know when to be serious and when to be lighthearted. They know when to speak and when to stay silent. They know how to diffuse tension with humor, how to boost confidence with compliments, how to create moments of connection that build emotional bonds. They're not fake. They're not constantly flattering. That would be transparent and off-putting. But they're consistently pleasant. They're easy to be around. They make interactions feel effortless. This is a skill that can be learned. Watch people who are naturally good at this. Watch how they mirror others' energy levels. Watch how they laugh at jokes even when they're not particularly funny. Watch how they remember personal details and bring them up in later conversations. Watch how they make other people the center of attention and seem genuinely interested in what they have to say. These are techniques. These are skills. And they're more valuable than almost any technical skill you could develop. I know what you're thinking. This all sounds manipulative. It sounds dishonest. It sounds like you're selling out your authenticity to play political games. And you're right. It is manipulation. But here's the question you need to ask yourself: is it more manipulative to understand social dynamics and use them consciously, or to remain ignorant of them and hurt people unconsciously through your social incompetence? Because let me tell you what happens when you reject court politics in the name of authenticity. You say what you really think without considering how it lands on others. You pursue your agenda without regard for others' feelings or egos. You focus purely on being right rather than being effective. And the result is that you create enemies, you burn bridges, you isolate yourself, and you fail to achieve your objectives. Your authenticity becomes a weapon you use to hurt others while feeling morally superior about it. That's not noble. That's just socially incompetent narcissism. The perfect courtier isn't fake. They're socially intelligent. They understand that all human interaction is performance to some degree. Even in your most intimate relationships, you're choosing how to present yourself, how to respond, what to reveal and what to conceal. The only question is whether you're doing this consciously and skillfully or unconsciously and clumsily. The courtier chooses consciousness. The courtier chooses skill. And the courtier achieves outcomes that the authentic but incompetent person never will. Now let's talk about modern corporations, because this is where most people encounter court dynamics and fail to recognize them. You walk into an office and you see job titles, organization charts, clearly defined roles and responsibilities. You think this is a meritocracy. You think success comes from doing your job well. And maybe at the lowest levels, this is somewhat true. But the moment you start moving up, the moment you enter management or senior roles, everything changes. Suddenly your success has almost nothing to do with your technical skills and everything to do with your ability to navigate court politics. Look at any senior executive team. Are these the most competent people in the company? Almost never. They're the people who best understood how to manage relationships with power, how to form alliances, how to avoid making enemies, how to take credit and deflect blame, how to make the CEO feel secure. They're professional courtiers. And they're extremely good at it. I'll give you a specific example. There was a company called Yahoo in the 2000s. It was one of the most valuable internet companies in the world. Inside Yahoo, there were two executives competing for influence. The first executive, let's call him Tom, was brilliant. He had a vision for how Yahoo could compete with Google. He had strategies backed by data. He had innovative ideas that could have transformed the company. But he had a fatal flaw. He was direct. When the CEO made bad decisions, Tom pushed back. When other executives presented flawed strategies, Tom pointed out the flaws. He was right more often than he was wrong. But he made people feel stupid. The second executive, let's call him Mark, was less visionary. His ideas were more conventional. But he was a perfect courtier. He never contradicted the CEO directly. He formed alliances with other executives. He took on projects that made his superiors look good, even when those projects didn't serve the company's long-term interests. He was pleasant in meetings, supportive of others' ideas, quick to give credit and slow to take it. He made people feel comfortable. What happened? Tom got marginalized. His ideas were ignored. He was excluded from key meetings. Eventually, he left the company in frustration. Mark rose to become one of the most powerful executives in Yahoo. He made decisions that, in hindsight, contributed to Yahoo's eventual decline. But he personally thrived. He got wealthy. He got powerful. He played the game perfectly even as the company lost. This is the dark truth about court politics. The game is not aligned with organizational success. The perfect courtier serves their own interests, not the organization's interests. They survive and thrive even as the organization fails. And this creates a profound tragedy. The people best at navigating political dynamics are often not the people best at leading organizations. So companies end up led by skilled courtiers rather than skilled operators, and the companies suffer as a result. This is why so many organizations are dysfunctional. This is why talented people leave while political operators stay. This is why companies make obviously bad decisions that everyone below the executive level can see are bad. Because the executive level is populated by courtiers, not visionaries. By people who excel at managing up, not managing organizations. And once courtiers reach the top, they surround themselves with other courtiers, because courtiers recognize and value their own kind. The visionaries, the truth-tellers, the competent but politically inept, they get filtered out. They get fired or they quit. And the court becomes a closed system, optimizing for political skill rather than organizational performance. So here's the question. If you understand this, if you see how the game is played, what do you do? Do you refuse to play? Do you maintain your integrity and accept that you'll never gain power? Or do you become a courtier yourself, gaining power at the cost of your values? This is the existential dilemma at the heart of Law 24. And there's no easy answer. But let me give you a framework for thinking about it. There are 3 approaches to court politics. The first approach is ignorance. You don't understand the game, so you blunder through it, making enemies without realizing it, hurting your own interests through social incompetence. This is the default for most people. And it leads to frustration, resentment, and failure. The second approach is mastery without morality. You understand the game perfectly and you play it ruthlessly. You manipulate, you deceive, you betray when it serves your interests. You become a pure courtier, caring only about your own advancement. This can lead to power and wealth and status. But it also leads to emptiness, because you've traded your soul for success. You've become a hollow shell, performing a role with no authentic core. And eventually, you'll meet a more skilled courtier who will destroy you using the same techniques you used on others. The third approach is conscious navigation. You understand the game. You recognize the dynamics. You learn the skills. But you also maintain boundaries. You use court politics to survive and advance, but you don't let it define you. You play the courtier when necessary, but you also pursue objectives beyond your own advancement. You form alliances, but you also keep promises. You manage perceptions, but you also deliver substance. You're in the game but not of the game. This third approach is the hardest. It requires constant vigilance. It requires you to be aware of your own motivations, to check yourself when you start caring more about winning the game than achieving meaningful objectives. It requires you to navigate court dynamics without becoming corrupted by them. Most people can't do this. They either remain ignorant or they become pure courtiers. The few who can walk this middle path become something rare, people with both power and integrity. Let me give you historical examples of all 3 types. First, the ignorant. There was a Roman senator named Cicero. Brilliant orator, gifted writer, principled defender of the Republic. He believed in the power of reason and rhetoric. He thought he could save Rome through speeches and legal arguments. He didn't understand that Rome's political system had already become pure court dynamics around military strongmen. He refused to align with Julius Caesar or Pompey or any of the power players. He tried to stand above politics. And when the political situation finally collapsed, when Mark Antony came to power, Cicero was executed. His head and hands were cut off and displayed in the Roman Forum. His brilliance meant nothing because he didn't understand the game. Second, the pure courtier. There was a French diplomat named Talleyrand who served under Louis XVI, then betrayed the monarchy during the Revolution, then served Napoleon, then betrayed Napoleon to serve the restored monarchy, then betrayed them to serve the next government. He changed sides half a dozen times over 40 years. He survived when everyone around him fell. He died wealthy and respected. He was the perfect courtier, completely amoral, completely focused on his own survival and advancement. And he's remembered as a symbol of political cynicism, a man who stood for nothing except his own interests. Third, the conscious navigator. There was a man named George Marshall who served as Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army during World War II and later as Secretary of State. He understood court politics perfectly. He knew how to manage Roosevelt's ego, how to navigate the complex politics of Washington, how to form alliances and neutralize enemies. But he also cared deeply about winning the war and rebuilding Europe after the war. He used political skills to achieve substantive objectives. He played the courtier when necessary, but he never forgot why he was playing. And he's remembered as one of the greatest public servants in American history. The Marshall Plan, the strategy that rebuilt Europe and prevented World War III, was named after him. Which of these three do you want to be? Cicero, brilliant but blind to political reality, destroyed by his idealism? Talleyrand, surviving and thriving through pure cynicism, remembered as a symbol of corruption? Or Marshall, navigating the game while maintaining purpose, using power to achieve meaningful ends? Most people, if they're honest, are somewhere between Cicero and Talleyrand. They have enough political awareness to avoid the worst blunders, but not enough integrity to resist corruption when it serves their interests. They drift through life in a gray zone, sometimes doing the right thing, sometimes selling out, never fully committing to either principle or power. And they wonder why they feel empty, why success doesn't satisfy them, why they look in the mirror and don't recognize themselves. Now let me talk about the specific skills of the perfect courtier, because if you're going to play this game, you need to know the techniques. The first skill is observation. The courtier is constantly watching, constantly gathering information. Who has real power versus formal authority? Who are the key alliances? Who are the rivalries? What are people's insecurities, their ambitions, their pressure points? The courtier sees what others miss because the courtier is always watching. Most people are focused on themselves in social situations. They're thinking about what they're going to say next, how they're being perceived, whether they're winning or losing the interaction. The courtier is focused on everyone else. They're reading body language. They're noticing who talks to whom. They're picking up on subtle tensions and alliances. They're gathering intelligence that will later allow them to navigate the political landscape. This requires you to get out of your own head. This requires you to care less about your own performance and more about understanding others. It's a skill that can be developed. Start watching people in meetings. Don't focus on what you're going to say. Watch the dynamics. Who defers to whom? Who interrupts whom? Who makes eye contact with whom? Who smiles when certain topics come up? These tiny signals reveal the hidden power structure. And once you understand the hidden power structure, you can navigate it consciously. The second skill is patience. The courtier never rushes. They understand that power dynamics take time to shift. They plant seeds and wait for them to grow. They form alliances slowly. They advance their agenda incrementally. They're willing to take one step back to take 2 steps forward. They never push so hard that they trigger resistance. This is perhaps the hardest skill for modern people to learn. We live in a culture of instant gratification. We want results now. We want recognition now. We want advancement now. And this impatience destroys us in court dynamics. Because courts move slowly. Trust is built gradually. Alliances are formed through repeated interactions over time. If you try to force the process, if you push too hard too fast, you'll be seen as aggressive, untrustworthy, dangerous. And you'll be blocked. The perfect courtier can wait years to achieve an objective. They can spend months building a relationship before asking for anything. They can endure setbacks without visible frustration. They understand that time is on their side if they play the game correctly. This patience is power. Because most of your competitors don't have it. Most people will burn themselves out trying to force outcomes. The courtier simply outlasts them. The third skill is strategic flattery. Notice I said strategic. Random flattery is obvious and off-putting. But strategic flattery, tailored to the specific insecurities and desires of the target, is incredibly powerful. The key is to flatter people for qualities they're uncertain about, not qualities they're confident in. If someone is obviously brilliant, telling them they're brilliant does nothing. They already know. But if someone is brilliant but insecure about their leadership abilities, complimenting their leadership vision will hit deep. The courtier studies people to understand their insecurities. What are they trying to prove? What do they doubt about themselves? Where do they need validation? And then the courtier provides that validation, genuinely and specifically. This isn't lying. This is paying attention to the parts of people that need reinforcement and offering that reinforcement. Everyone has insecurities. Everyone craves certain forms of validation. The courtier who provides that validation becomes invaluable. The fourth skill is adaptation. The courtier is a social chameleon. They can adjust their personality, their communication style, their energy level to match whatever the situation requires. They're formal with formal people, casual with casual people. They're analytical with analytical thinkers, emotional with emotional thinkers. They mirror the person they're interacting with, creating a sense of similarity and comfort. This isn't being fake. This is being versatile. You contain multitudes. You have formal and casual aspects, analytical and emotional capacities. The courtier simply emphasizes different aspects of themselves depending on the context. They're not lying about who they are. They're strategically revealing the parts of themselves that will create connection in each specific situation. Most people have one mode. They're always casual or always formal, always emotional or always analytical. And this limits them. They connect deeply with people similar to themselves and bounce off everyone else. The courtier can connect with anyone because they have the flexibility to meet people where they are. This is an incredible advantage in building the broad network that power requires. The fifth skill is controlled revelation. The courtier shares information strategically. They never reveal everything they know. They never show all their cards. They understand that mystery creates interest, that holding back creates desire, that people value what they have to work to discover more than what's freely given. This applies to your opinions, your knowledge, your abilities, your connections. If you reveal everything immediately, you become boring. You become predictable. You lose leverage. But if you reveal things gradually, if you let people discover your depths over time, you remain interesting. You remain valuable. You maintain the power that comes from being somewhat unknowable. The courtier in a meeting doesn't immediately share their best idea. They wait. They listen. They let others exhaust their ideas. And then, at the right moment, they offer their insight. And because it comes after everyone else has spoken, because it arrives when people are ready to hear it, it has more impact. Timing matters. And controlled revelation is about timing your value delivery for maximum effect. Now let's talk about the dangers. Because court politics is a game that eats souls. The more you play it, the more you risk losing yourself. The more you perform, the more you forget what's performance and what's real. The more you manipulate, the more you start seeing all relationships as transactions. The more you focus on perception, the less you care about substance. This is the corruption that comes with courtier skills. And it's very real. I've seen it happen countless times. Someone learns these skills. They get good at them. They start advancing. They get promoted. They gain influence. And somewhere along the way, they stop caring about anything except the game itself. They forget why they wanted power in the first place. They become addicted to winning the political battles and lose sight of any larger purpose. They become hollow. They become the very thing they once despised. This is why I said earlier that the third path, conscious navigation, is the hardest. Because it requires you to use these skills without being consumed by them. It requires you to remember that the game is not the point. The game is just the means. The point is what you do with the power you gain. If you forget this, if you start playing just to win, you've already lost something more important than any position or title or wealth. So how do you avoid this corruption? First, maintain relationships outside the court. Have friendships that aren't about advancement. Have hobbies that aren't about networking. Have parts of your life where you can be completely authentic without strategic calculation. These spaces remind you who you are beneath the performance. They keep you grounded. Second, regularly reassess your objectives. Why are you playing this game? What do you actually want? Is it the power itself, or is it what you can do with power? If you can't answer this question clearly, if you've lost touch with your larger purpose, you're in danger. Stop. Reflect. Reconnect with what matters to you beyond winning the political game. Third, set boundaries. Decide what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Are you willing to betray a friend for advancement? Are you willing to implement a strategy you believe will harm the organization? Are you willing to suppress truth to protect power? Know your lines. And when you're tempted to cross them, remember that maintaining your integrity is the only thing that will let you live with yourself in the long run. Fourth, use your power for something beyond yourself. If you're just accumulating power for its own sake, you'll never be satisfied. There will always be someone with more power. There will always be another level to reach. It's an infinite game with no winning condition. But if you're accumulating power to achieve specific objectives, to help specific people, to change specific things, then you have an end point. You have purpose. And purpose protects you from corruption better than anything else. Let me tell you one final story. There was a man named Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison for fighting apartheid in South Africa. During those years, he had every reason to become bitter, to become consumed with revenge, to lose his humanity. Instead, he studied his captors. He learned Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors. He read their history, their poetry, their culture. He learned to understand them as human beings, not just as enemies. When Mandela was released from prison, he could have used his moral authority to destroy his oppressors. The black majority would have supported violent revenge. The world would have understood. But instead, Mandela played the perfect courtier on a national scale. He understood that the white Afrikaners still controlled the military, the economy, and the infrastructure. If he humiliated them, if he made them feel cornered and afraid, they would fight to the death and South Africa would descend into civil war. So he did something extraordinary. He made his former captors feel secure. He wore Springbok rugby jerseys, the symbol of Afrikaner pride. He invited his former prison guards to his inauguration. He kept white officials in government positions. He spoke Afrikaans in public. He learned their songs and their customs. He made them feel that they had a place in the new South Africa, that they wouldn't be destroyed or humiliated for their past. This wasn't weakness. This was masterful court politics. By making the Afrikaners feel secure rather than threatened, he diffused their resistance. By honoring their culture while dismantling their oppressive system, he gave them a path to surrender power peacefully. He played the perfect courtier to an entire ethnic group that had imprisoned him for 3 decades. This shows the highest application of courtier skills. Mandela used them not for personal advancement, but for national transformation. He understood that. Never outshine or humiliate those with residual power. Even defeated, the Afrikaners could cause chaos. Make people feel secure, not threatened. Security breeds cooperation, fear breeds resistance. Strategic empathy is more powerful than righteous anger. Understanding your opponents lets you neutralize them. Court politics can serve moral purposes, the skills themselves are neutral, the goals determine morality. Thank you. Keep following the sessions and implement these things in your life.